All right, welcome back into the show. And I'm using Riverside again. I didn't think I'd use Riverside again, but we got some new equipment I wanted to try out, and I'm excited to try it out. So I figured, why not? Let's get to some college basketball because that's why you guys are here for sure. Big weekend. Big weekend. I love college basketball so much. It is It's amazing. March Madness is it, man. It is flat out it. I love it so much, and these games were unreal. Unreal. I feel bad for my guy, Asher Smith. Big Ten didn't do so hot. I think Jonah was right about that one. Jonah was all out on the Big Ten and in on the Big East. And the Big East looked pretty good. They ended up with 3 teams in, and we'll go through it a lot. We'll go through some of the teams that I really like that are still in, some of the games that were really interesting to me because there was a lot of good basketball. It was a lot of good basketball. Um, I want to start with the South. Okay, let's get to the South. Um, Alabama, to me, they looked pretty good. They looked tough. Brandon Miller, guy's freaking monster. I mean, we've been over it. We went over it a lot. Like, the guy's going to be ridiculous. He's supposed to be a top 3 pick in the NBA draft. Some even have him above Scooter Henderson, which on a draft pod, we'll get into all that. But Miller's been playing decent. He's been dealing a little bit with an injury. I think it's a groin injury, if I'm not mistaken. But he's been looking really good this tournament. And Bama, they had a tough game against Maryland. The score is a little deceiving. They ended up winning 73-51, but that was tough. That was tough, man. Maryland can really play. They're a tough team, tough, physical, and all that. And Bama came in, didn't expect too much, and then in the second half, they really turned it on, started hitting some threes. Quitherly's been playing great. I love Javon Quitherly. I'm looking at the box score right now, and Quitherly, he had 22 points in this game, 4 of 6 from 3, 9 of 14 from the field. If Quitherly's playing at a high level, Alabama is a very difficult team to beat. Um, they're probably the most talented team in college basketball. I will say that 100% on the podcast. I think they are the most talented team. And if they're hitting their shots, there's no way that anybody can beat them. Anybody. And I'm saying that now because it's really difficult, especially with the bigs they got. I'm not even going to try to say his name. I think it's Benedico. I just screw that. But like, they got bigs that are really talented. Benedico had 10 points and 10 rebounds and was just a monster. And then Marcus Sears as a 3, he's outstanding. Can really do a lot of stuff with the ball. He's very difficult. And then Clowney's another big that they bring in that's really difficult. And with Bama, man, like, they're really tough. They're really tough. And I think playing against San Diego State, it's going to be interesting because San Diego State's the type of team they go 9 deep and they can really throw a lot of guys at you. Like, they'll be able to throw a lot of guys at Brandon Miller, and we'll see how he responds. So that's going to be really interesting to watch because of all the guys San Diego State can throw. They have a former Oakland transfer, San Diego State does, of Micah Parrish, who's been unbelievable. He had a great game against Furman on Saturday. And they just got a lot of guys that are dangerous, a lot of like forward type players that can defend, move their feet, switch, and they got some bigs that are awesome. Like, San Diego State's going to be a tough matchup for Bama, but if Bama's hitting their shots, again, I just said it earlier, they can beat anybody. So it's going to be interesting to see. I'm excited. I'm excited to see that game. I think it's really going to be a close game, and I think it's going to come down to who has the best player. And Alabama, they got the best player in Brandon Miller, and that's why I got Bama out of there, and I have Bama out of that conference. All right, let's get to Creighton and Princeton. Okay, Princeton's been one of the biggest upset stories in March Madness. I love them. They're awesome. I love the Tigers. I was a little nervous when they got put at 15, which is why I didn't pick them in any of my brackets. I was just like, they're a 15 seed. They're playing against a tough team in Zona. I really liked Zona at the time. My mistake. But Princeton has looked unbelievable. They just play so hard and so smart, and they can shoot the lights out. Like, and the thing that's impressed me so much about Princeton is they can play in different styles too. which is really difficult in college basketball because if you're able to play in different styles, you can adapt to different people and you can win games. So I think if you're Creighton, you're a little nervous in this game. This is going to be tough because Princeton's playing at a really high level that'll be very difficult for them to slow down. But to be fair, Creighton's been playing at an insane level. And Jonah and I talked about it in our pod. We really liked Creighton. We were all in. And Asher started to like Creighton too, coming in too. Like, this team's tough. They're really tough. Ryan Nembhard just had 30 points last game against Baylor and was ridiculous. Flat out ridiculous. The guy, it runs in the genes, man. I love Andrew Nembhard. I love Ryan Nembhard. Guys are awesome. And then Cockburn, their big, is really talented. He's just really tough to handle inside. Baylor didn't have too much for him, and he was just outstanding. You know, Creighton's got a lot of guys like that can really do some stuff. So I'm excited to see that game, Creighton-Princeton. I'm so mad at myself for picking Arizona over Creighton. Ugh, it was difficult. It was difficult. I remember going through it in the Sweet 16 with Asher, and I was in on Zona. I liked Zona. I love Tommy Lloyd. They'll recover. They'll recover, but that's really tough. It's really tough because Zona had two really talented teams that could go somewhere in the tournament, and they didn't do anything. So it's really difficult there. But if you're a Zona fan, you should be okay. Like Tommy Lloyd, you know, you got a great coach, and he's been outstanding, and he's getting you foreign guys that can really play. And, you know, Zona will be back 100%, and I will pick them again. I will. I'm not going to not pick Zona. They're awesome. All right, let's get to the East. And the East was crazy. I had one Elite Eight team, or Sweet 16 team, right, which is so bad. So bad. I was so mad at this region. But let's get to the first game, Florida Atlantic versus Tennessee. And I didn't expect it at all. Florida Atlantic snuck out against Memphis, and I was so mad. Like, Kendrick Davis played awesome. Guys played awesome. They just choked it down the stretch. Florida Atlantic got the dub, and I was really mad. And then Fairleigh Dickinson, man, credit to them. One of the best upsets we've seen in a long time. UMBC. It's the only other 16 seed to beat a 1 seed. And gosh, that was crazy. I remember watching it with my dad, and we were just like, what is going on? How is Purdue doing this? You know, like, my dad was so mad. He had Purdue in his finals, and, you know, there was just anger filling on every possession. Like, it just, the pressure building up. And you know, when the pressure's all on the 1 seed, it's just not going to go well, you know. And FDU was able to make the charge, make the comeback, and close that game out. The smallest team in the NCAA pulls off the biggest upset. That was really awesome. Fun game to watch. And yeah, so FDU ended up playing FAU, and Florida Atlantic snuck out. But Florida Atlantic, they're difficult. They're a very good team, very interesting team. Let's get to Tennessee a little bit. We talked about them a little bit. I liked Louisiana. I was all in on Louisiana, and it was mostly because Tennessee has lost Zakai Ziegler. And Zakai Ziegler, he's their guy. You know, he's their engine, and he looked really good throughout the season, was getting everybody involved. And I forgot that they still have Vescovi. And Vescovi is so good, so talented. The guy was hitting every single three against Duke, and I was so mad about it. I was just like, God, how could I forget that they have Vescovi? He ended up with 14 points. He was 4 of 8 from 3. Dude was a monster. And then, I'm not going to say his name right, but I think it's, I've heard it said right, so I'm not going to blunder it. But one of Tennessee's forwards, he was number 13, Oliver. Not going to try to say the last name, but he was fantastic in this game. Dude had 27 points and was ridiculous, flat out ridiculous, was shooting threes. He was lights out, 10 for 13 from the field. He was insane, flat out insane. And Duke didn't have any answers. But I'm going to say one thing to give some credit to Duke, and that is when they are completely healthy this year, they were 19-1. and they had lost their forward Mitchell, which I did not know about. I think he got injured in the first game. And when you lose a starter caliber, and that guy, he would have gone against Oliver, I'm not going to say his last name. He would have gone against him and probably could have slowed him down. You know, like I'm not going to say they would win that game because Tennessee had the edge and Tennessee also was missing Ziegler. So, like, you don't know what's going to happen there. But I'm going to credit Duke. When they're healthy, they were a best bet. And that's why in this region, I lost Duke. I had Duke in my finals. But that's why I was just like, it is what it is. You know, Duke, I would have picked Duke 10 times out of 10. If they didn't get injured, they probably could have gotten out of this region. I knew Purdue was a fraud 1 seed, and I'm sorry, Purdue fans, you were. It's tough. You know, you guys are young. You guys are going to come back strong. I talked to Drew Comer, my guy, last night, and all we talked about was how Purdue is going to be so good next year. And they probably will be because they got most of their guys coming back. So if you're Purdue fans, if you're Duke fans, you're okay. You know, you're on a good trajectory. You're going to be fine. All right, let's get to the next one. Let's get to Michigan State. I got to talk Michigan State. State fans are probably mad that it took 11 minutes into this first part. But, dude, State was awesome. They were flat out awesome. This was my only Sweet 16 team, right? And they really showed me what's up. They had a big win against USC, and they looked awesome. Tyson Walker playing great. You know, and the most impressive part about this was they're third in the NCAA in three-point field goal percentage, and they couldn't hit a three. And they still ended up winning this game. That's what makes them so difficult. You know, they're so talented. Hogard had a fantastic game, ended up with 13 points against Marquette. Tyson Walker was great, 23 points. Joey Hauser, man, he stepped up. It doesn't look like it here. He was like, if you look at his field goals, he was 3 of 8, 1 for 3 from 3. But he was able to get to the line. He had 14 points and 10 rebounds, which is just a monster. And then Sissoko was great. Sissoko was fantastic. He was really that big inside. Marquette didn't have anybody to really come at him, you know? And Tyler Kolek for Marquette, I'm sorry to say it, but he just seemed rattled. Like, the pressure kind of got to him. And I think he was a fantastic player. The guy was Big East Player of the Year. But, you know, State was able to get under his skin. You got to credit the game plan. You got to credit Walker. You got to credit Hogard. Like, these guys just played so hard. And Michigan State, thank you, because you're the only Big Ten team left. And you looked fantastic. So I'm going to give all the credit here to Michigan State. I love Tom Izzo. I'm not going to hate on Tom Izzo. I know I'm more of a Michigan guy than a State guy, but I love Tom Izzo. Dude is awesome. Mr. March, as they call him, he's been fantastic. And I'm going to give all the credit to Michigan State in the world. And I'm rooting for you guys. I am. I'm all in on the State train. You know, this team is awesome to watch. It's a lot of fun. Let's get to who they're playing, and that's Kansas State. In Kansas State, I'm a little nervous for Michigan State, not going to lie. And Kansas State has a point guard named Marcus Norwell, who took March Madness by storm against Kentucky. This guy was fantastic, up and down the floor. He's throwing no-look passes. The guy was insane. He was flat out nuts last night. I think it was 2 nights ago. I'm sorry, that's Tuesday. Days are coming in, like, they're going fast, man. They're going fast. But Marcus Norwell was unbelievable in this game. He had 27 points and 9 assists. Dude was just incredible. And Cason Wallace for Kentucky, he was awesome too. If I'm an NBA team, I'm really looking at Cason Wallace. I like him a lot. But getting back to Kansas State, they have a lot of guys that are really difficult. And I think it's going to be tough for Michigan State because I think Kansas State's bigs are more talented than Michigan State. And the bigs for Kansas State are Tomlin, and they got Carter, who's a guard, Sills, who's a guard, and Keontae Johnson is fantastic. Flat out fantastic. Fantastic story. He's the guy that collapsed at Florida. And He had to sit out of basketball last year, and he transferred to Kansas State, and he's been their leading scorer. He's been fantastic for them. I love Keontae Johnson. I love his story. I'm so happy for him finding a team. And the thing that's so impressive with Kansas State is they were picked last in the Big 12. Last. And they've been outstanding, flat out outstanding. They only had 2 guys from returning from their team last year, new coach, and he has done a terrific job, flat out terrific job. They're in the Sweet 16. They got a tough matchup in Michigan State. That's going to be a really interesting game. I'm really excited for that. I'm rooting for State. I'm hoping they can pull it out, but that's going to be very difficult. Marcus Norwell is not somebody to take lightly. The guy is unbelievable, and he turned it up against Kentucky 2 days ago. All right, let's get to the Midwest. Let's talk Houston. I still love Houston. I'm still all in. Houston scared me a little bit with Northern Kentucky, the Norse. That's the Horizon League team. Their matchup zone kind of confused them a little bit, which I love. I love the Horizon team competing a little bit. But Houston got over that, and then they played Auburn on, I think, Saturday. And they did great. They did awesome. Like, if you look at it in the first half, you're like, ooh, I don't know what's going on here. They were down 10 at halftime, and I got really nervous. So I turned that game on in the second half, and boy, was I happy I turned that on, because they turned it up to a different level. They looked like the championship team that I saw them to be, that I picked them to be. They were awesome, flat out awesome. Marcus Sasser played an unbelievable game, shooting lights out from 3. The guy was awesome, flat out awesome. 22 points, 7 of 14 from the field, 5 of 9 from 3, and he's playing with a hurt groin. It's just really impressive what Sasser's doing. He's been unbelievable. But the thing with Houston that impressed me so much was Sasser and their second leading scorer, Sheed, who didn't have the best game, but he's been looking good. They were both in foul trouble. And Jarace Walker was playing with 3 fouls for a long time. But Tremont Mark came in and was outstanding. The guy just took over the offense and controlled everything. Guy was awesome, flat out awesome. He would get to his spot, hit a little mid-range jumper. He was just difficult to stop, flat out difficult. He ended up with 27 points in the game, and Auburn couldn't do anything. They couldn't do anything. KD Johnson had a solid game. I love the energy he brings. I love him. Wendell Green struggled a little bit, which was tough to watch because he's from Michigan. He's one of our guys. But Houston, they just turned it up to a different level. And Jarace Walker, this guy is unreal. I love him so much. I'm telling you, this guy better be skyrocketing some draft boards, because he is awesome, flat out awesome. I think he's clear number 4 in the NBA draft. The guy was able to switch and move his feet against anyone, and he's so much taller than I thought he was. And the athleticism he plays with is just incredible. This guy's unreal. I love Jarace Walker. I think he's going to be a fantastic NBA player, and I think he's going to be very difficult for anybody to match up with. All right, let's get to Miami, Indiana. I'm sorry, Asher Smith. It was a little rough. You had Indiana coming out of this. We talked about this as a difficult matchup. I had Miami. I'm going to rub it in a little bit, but I'm sorry, buddy. Indiana's a good team. Hood DeFino he was great in this game. He was hitting some threes early, and Trace Jackson Davis was also pretty good in this game. 7 of 10, 23 points. I hadn't seen too much of Indiana this year, and I liked them after this game. So, I credit your pick. I still like your pick, but they ran into a Miami team that couldn't miss. They were insane in this game. Isaiah Wong, remember the name, okay? This guy is unreal. He was fantastic. 27 points in this game, 8 rebounds. I loved him coming in. I loved him. He's a fantastic player. Fantastic. I mean, it's like he can go left, he can go right, he can hit a tough mid-range. He can do everything you want on the floor, which is very tough to handle. And they had guys that just couldn't miss. Pack at the beginning of the game, their point guard, number 25, he was hitting deep threes. He had 2 logo threes, and I was like, geez, the guy's flowing today. And then Miller, their other guard, was fantastic as well. He ended up with 19 points, and he was just working them. He was just flat out working them. And I think Miami, they're going to be tough. It's going to be a tough matchup with Houston. If Miami's flowing, again, Houston's got to find a way to just close the game out and do what they got to do, But it's going to be an exciting game. I'm looking forward to that one, Miami-Houston. I think, to me, other than Kansas State and Michigan State, it's going to be one of my favorite games to watch. And we're getting to some good ones. Like the Midwest and the West gave us some pretty good games. Let's get to the next one. It's going to be Xavier, Texas. And Xavier, they impressed me. Kennesaw State had control of the game early, and I was like, no, what's going on with Xavier, And Xavier turned it up, and were able to come back and win. Colby Jones struggled a little bit in that game, but Colby Jones really stepped up in the second game against Pittsburgh. He was unreal. He ended up with 10 points, 14 rebounds, and 7 assists. And that is a terrific stat line, flat out terrific. If you want a guy in the NBA draft, that's what you want. A guy that can rebound, pass, and score. He could do everything. I'm going to shout out Marty Hannon, though, because he did mention on the podcast that Colby Jones needs to work on his free throws. And I thought that was going to hurt them in the Kennesaw State game. And it did. It did. Near the end of the game, he missed some free throws. Boom, missed a big layup. But they were still able to close the deal, get the job done. I really like their big Nunji. He had a big game against Pittsburgh with 18 points. They got a lot of guys. They got a lot of guys on this team. Kunkel is really good shooter. He ended up with 5 threes in this game. He was a monster. And then even with Boom off, Boom only had 14 points on 3 of 13 shooting, but all from the free throw line there. They're still able to win by 10, win by a decent amount, and look good. So I think they're going to be a tough matchup for anybody, but they're running into Texas. And Texas is another one of those teams that I think are for real. I think this bracket, to me, is the most stacked left, 100%. I love Texas here. Marcus Carr is fantastic. Guy can score with the best of them. He's unbelievable. In this game against Penn State, he only had 10 points. Credit Penn State. They did a fantastic job defensively. But Dessou, their big, was unreal in this game. He ended up with, I think it was 20 and 10. Let me check this. It was 28 and 10. Dude was just a monster. He was a monster, just controlling the paint. It's very difficult for Penn State to slow down. I'm going to give a lot of credit to Penn State this year. They were awesome. Asher and I really gave them a lot of credit, and they were just a fun team to watch. They really played Texas close. I was a little surprised how close they played them, but Texas showed me a lot. They showed me a lot, and I wouldn't want to see Texas. It's going to be very interesting. Xavier, it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a very tough game. We'll see what happens there. All right, let's get to the last region, the West. All right, Arkansas, Kansas. This game was awesome. One of my favorite games. Jordan Walsh, he is amazing. Guy defends so hard. And I love guys like that. He shut down Jalen Wilson at the end of the game. And he was just flat out terrific. I think Arkansas has just got a lot of pieces that are really difficult and should be looked at in the NBA draft. Ricky Council IV took over at the end of the game. Flat out took over, was getting to the free throw line, hitting his free throws, hitting some tough mid-range shots. Guy's insane. I love Ricky Council. And then you got Anthony Black. I'm going to say one thing. Nick Smith Jr. didn't impress me, and I think he didn't impress a lot of people. I heard a lot of comments on Twitter like, where's Nick Smith Jr.? And that was because he was benched in the fourth quarter. So, hopefully he can make a bounce back. I'm rooting for the kid. We'll see there. He didn't impress me too much as a prospect. Some have him top 5. In this game, I liked Walsh a lot. I think Walsh could be a late first round pick. I think the Pistons should look at getting a late first and trying to get him because he's very good. I like him a lot. And then Ricky Council. Ricky Council showed everybody that he's a baller, flat out baller. And then Anthony Black, he didn't have the best game in this game, but he's tough. He's very tough. All right, let's get to UConn. UConn, to me, they look terrific, flat out terrific. They're the second half Huskies, and they're great. They're flat out great. They were losing at halftime to St. Mary's. I'm going to credit Randy Bennett. I love him as a coach. Fantastic. He does a great job with his teams. They don't get enough credit. But UConn came in the second half a different team. Their big Sanogo is unbelievable. He's their guy. He had 24 and 8, and he just controlled the paint, flat out controlled the paint. And they have a lot of guys that can really give them buckets. Hawkins is fantastic. He was 4 for 5 from 3 in this game. Noon's fantastic. They got a lot of guys that are just very tough. And I'm really excited to see UConn move on. I have UConn in my Final Four personally. I just really like Dan Hurley. And I think he's just a fantastic coach, moves pieces around and does really, really good things. And they just have so many athletes on their team. And I think it's tough, you know. There's so much talent in this Arkansas-UConn game that I really think is going to be put on display. And it's going to be really down to the coaches. Who's a better coach, Dan Hurley or Musselman? And talking about Musselman, I liked him a little before the game. And my feelings for him went way downhill after the game. I was so mad. I was like, dude, it's the same thing with Sirianni. It's the same thing with Sirianni to me. Some people like it, some people don't. And that's fine with me. That's fine. But to me, you're stealing, especially in college athletics, to me, you're stealing the spotlight from the players. And that spotlight should only go on the players. And that's not what he's doing. And it's just difficult. Like taking your shirt off at the end of the game. Come on, man. What are you doing? You know? And if you watched him throughout the whole game, he was like moving his feet, doing all that stuff. That stuff is fine to me. Some of it, at least. And like, at least it's not really stealing camera time. But like taking your shirt off in front of the whole, that was bad. That was bad to me. And I mean, that makes me root for UConn a little more. But to me, like, I love the players on Arkansas and I love what they stood for. I loved Davis after the game. I didn't talk about him too much, but I think he deserves some props. Davis was unbelievable in this game. He ended up with 25 points. He was 9 of 15 from the floor. He was fantastic in the game and he fouled out late. And they were able to close the deal without him in. Credit Ricky Council. But Davis at the end of the game, he got interviewed and like you could see it was like real tears of emotion of like what they went through to get there. And like I was so impressed with that and made me love the players a little more. And I think Musselman's a fantastic coach, but like again, like those moments are for the players, you know? Like it's to build them because March Madness is more about the players than you. You can get interviewed after the game and do all that stuff and you can build your brand on the side, but you don't really have to like steal all the TV time. Like the TV time is for the kids. It's for the kids. At least that's my opinion. All right, let's get to the last game. Gonzaga, UCLA. Okay, and these are two West Coast teams, so I don't know too much about them. I've liked Gonzaga all year. I have. They still got Drew Timme, which is unbelievable to me. And they had a tough win against TCU. I didn't catch too much of this, but Drew Timme was terrific, 28 points, 8 rebounds. And Bolton, one of their guards, he was terrific also, 17 points. They got guys on this team. They're just deep. They're always deep, and they're always super well coached. Drew Timme, he's been there a while, fantastic, and they're super well coached with Mark Few. Mark Few is one of the best coaches in college basketball, and he's done a terrific job. That was a very gritty win against TCU. TCU is a tough team. They had a fantastic year. The Big 12 was awesome this year. I give a lot of credit to the Big 12, but fantastic win for Gonzaga there. And let's get to the last game, UCLA. UCLA snuck out against Northwestern. And I was all in on Boise State this year. It didn't really go well. Northwestern controlled that game. I'm going to credit Boo Buie. They got guys there. Northwestern, credit to Chris Collins. Unbelievable job there. Unbelievable. But UCLA is tough too. They still got I think it's Tiger Campbell. Tiger Campbell. Dude's fantastic. Fantastic hair too. You love that. Tiger Campbell's still there. Jaime Jaquez is still there. He had an unbelievable game with 24 points, 11 of 19 from the field. And then Amari Bailey, the freshman from Sierra Canyon, he's fantastic. He is fantastic. He can defend, he can score, he can do what you need him to do. And I think he's a very big piece for them, and he had a fantastic game. All right. So I went through the games, and I'm going to give you who I think will make it out of the Final Four right now. I have 3 people right now in from my original picks. And here are what I got. I got Alabama out of the South. Okay. I got Kansas State now out of the East. And I just think Kansas State is going to be too tough for Michigan State. I love Michigan State. I'm rooting for them to make it out. Whoever wins that game, I want to make it out. But I think Kansas State's just going to be a little too tough. And I think they're a team of destiny this year, and it's going to be very difficult to slow them down. So I think Kansas State out of the East. And then the Midwest, I still got Houston. So I'm going to roll with Houston. And then the West, I'm going to roll with UConn. I'm going to roll with that. So I got Houston, UConn, my Final Four, in one of my Final Four games, and then Alabama and Kansas State. It's the other one.